The hottest summer Gilbert Ramirez could remember began in South Florida. For years, he ignored his mother's calls from Cali, Colombia. Work, life, excuses. Then one afternoon, his phone rang again. This time, he answered. Her voice trembled. "Mi hijo, please come. I don't have much time." Something in her voice felt wrong, not sick, terrified.
Hello? What? No, that's not true. I'm here now.
Gilbert booked the first flight. He had no idea. Something had already begun waiting for him. 24 hours later, the mountains surrounding Cali disappeared beneath the airplane. The city glowed beneath thick clouds. Beautiful, ancient, watching. As Gilbert stepped outside the airport, warm, tropical air wrapped around him like wet hands. For a brief moment, he thought he heard something growl, but there were no animals nearby, only people, who suddenly stopped talking and stared at him. His mother hugged him tightly, too tightly. She refused to let go. When she finally looked into his eyes, she whispered, "Promise me something. Never go near the river after sunset." Gilbert laughed. "Mom, I'm not a kid anymore." She didn't smile. Instead, she crossed herself, then looked toward the mountains, as though something was listening. That evening, the electricity flickered. Once, twice, 3 times. Then, everything went dark outside. The jungle became completely silent. No birds, no insects, nothing. Gilbert stepped onto the porch. Then, he heard it. A splash, far away, followed by another, and another, as if something unimaginably large was swimming upstream. Unable to sleep, Gilbert looked out his bedroom window. Moonlight reflected off the distant river. Then, something broke the surface. 2 enormous yellow eyes, floating, perfectly still, watching. Blink. Gone. Gilbert rubbed his eyes. There was nothing there. But somewhere beyond the darkness, something ancient had just learned his name. The next morning, Gilbert convinced himself the glowing eyes had been nothing more than exhaustion. His mother never mentioned the river again, but every time she looked toward the jungle, fear filled her eyes. That afternoon, an elderly fisherman named Gabriel approached Gilbert outside a small cafe. Without saying a word, he handed Gilbert an ancient old wooden carving. It was shaped like a black caiman. The old man's hands shook and trembled. "You should leave now!" Before Gilbert could ask why, the fisherman walked away without ever looking back. That night, the whispers returned, soft, barely human. Gilbert. He opened his old bedroom window. No one. Only the distant Cali River, shining beneath the full moon. Then the voice came again, closer. "Come." Without realizing it, he stepped outside, barefoot, as though sleepwalking. The jungle seemed to open before him, waiting. Every step deeper into the jungle. The air grew colder. The trees became twisted, covered with hanging vines. Then, he noticed something strange. Every bird, every monkey, every insect had disappeared. Nature itself had gone silent. Only the sound of moving water remained. The river appeared without warning. Its surface was perfectly still, like black glass. Gilbert stepped closer. Then, he saw it. A ripple. Another. Then, 2 massive yellow eyes opened beneath the water. They never blinked. They simply stared. The river wasn't empty. It had been watching him the entire time. The water exploded. A monstrous black caiman burst from the river with terrifying force, nearly 50 feet long. Its scales were darker than the night itself. Its jaws opened impossibly wide, rows of yellow teeth, longer than kitchen knives. Gilbert turned to run. Too late. The beast lunged. Its jaws slammed onto his leg with a sickening crack. His scream echoed across the jungle. Then both man and monster disappeared beneath the black water. The river became still once more. Only crimson ripples drifted across the surface. Then, without warning, Gilbert's unconscious body floated back to shore, alive, barely breathing. The black Caiman was gone, but deep beneath the water, two glowing eyes remained open, watching, waiting, as if the bite had been exactly what it wanted. Gilbert woke to the smell of antiseptic. A dim hospital room in Cali came into focus. His mother sat beside him, exhausted, clutching a rosary so tightly her knuckles had turned white. A doctor entered with a puzzled expression. "We've treated crocodile attacks before," he said quietly. "But this..." He slowly unwrapped the bandages. Everyone froze. The wound was gone. Not healing. Gone. Only smooth black skin remained where flesh should have been. That night, Gilbert couldn't sleep. Every sound was louder. He could hear nurses whispering from the other end of the hallway, rain striking windows 3 floors below, even the heartbeat of the man sleeping in the next room. Then, a new sound. Drip, drip, drip. Water. Inside the room. The bathroom door creaked open by itself. Wet footprints, large, reptilian, slowly appeared across the tile, one after another, leading toward Gilbert's bed. No one was there. Only footprints, fresh, still dripping. Then they stopped, right beside him. Gilbert looked down. His fingernails were changing, hardening, darkening, stretching into thick black claws. His skin tightened painfully. Tiny scales pushed through his arms like shattered glass. Bones cracked, joints twisted. He screamed. But the sound wasn't entirely human anymore. Something ancient was waking up inside him. Unable to control himself, Gilbert staggered toward the bathroom mirror. He barely recognized the face staring back. His pupils had narrowed into vertical slits. His teeth had become jagged. Black scales crawled across his neck. Then, the reflection smiled. Gilbert didn't. The creature inside the mirror blinked and whispered. Soon, the lights exploded. Darkness swallowed the room, and from somewhere beyond the walls, the black Caiman answered, with a roar that shook the entire hospital. The hospital fell silent. Then, the emergency lights flickered to life, bathing every hallway in blood-red light. Gilbert stood barefoot in the corridor. His breathing was slow, controlled. His pupils had narrowed into thin reptilian slits. Every heartbeat inside the building echoed through his mind. He could smell fear, and it smelled delicious. A frightened security guard rounded the corner. His flashlight beam landed on Gilbert. "Sir, don't move." Gilbert slowly turned. His eyes reflected the light like a predator stalking prey. The guard's radio crackled, then went silent. He lowered the flashlight for just a second. When he looked up again, Gilbert was gone. Only a trail of muddy footprints stretched into the darkness. Outside, rain poured over the streets of Cali. Gilbert wandered through the city, confused and terrified. Every passing stranger's heartbeat thundered in his ears. Every drop of rain felt alive against his skin. Then, the whispers returned. Come home. They weren't coming from the jungle. They were coming from inside his own mind. Back at the river, Police investigators searched the muddy shoreline. They expected to find a crocodile. Instead, they found footprints nearly 3 feet long, half human, half reptile. One officer measured the tracks. Another stared at a tree trunk. 4 deep claw marks had been carved through solid wood, as though it were soft clay. Something impossible had walked out of the river. Gilbert returned to his mother's house just before sunrise. She opened the door and gasped. He looked almost human, almost. But beneath his skin, something moved. His eyes flashed yellow for only a moment. His mother knew the truth. She had seen those eyes before, when she was a little girl. The old stories, the disappearances, the cursed river. They had all returned. She whispered through trembling tears. "It chose you." Gilbert looked toward the distant jungle. The sunrise should have brought comfort. Instead, he heard the river calling his name once more. And this time, he wanted to answer. The full moon climbed above the Colombian jungle. Its pale light spilled across the river like liquid silver. Gilbert stood alone on the muddy bank. His breathing slowed, then stopped. A deep crack echoed through the night. His spine twisted. His arms stretched unnaturally. Black scales spread across his entire body like living armor. His fingers fused into powerful clawed hands. Rows of jagged teeth forced their way through his gums. His yellow eyes reflected the moon. The man was disappearing. The curse was complete. The river became perfectly still, not a ripple, not a sound. Then, a pair of enormous yellow eyes slowly emerged from beneath the surface. The ancient black Caiman had returned, older than memory, larger than any creature should be, covered in scars from battles no human had ever witnessed. It stared at Gilbert, not with hunger, but with recognition. The curse had never been about creating monsters. It had always been about choosing a successor. Memories flooded Gilbert's mind. Explorers, hunters, villagers. For centuries, the river had marked one soul every generation, not as punishment, as protection. The curse created a guardian, bound forever to the river, bound forever to the darkness beneath its surface. Gilbert fell to one knee. The ancient creature lowered its massive head. The jungle waited. The wind stopped. Even the moon seemed frozen. Then, the old guardian closed its eyes. Its scarred body slowly sank beneath the water. It was gone. Its watch had ended. Gilbert's had just begun. Weeks passed. The disappearances around the river stopped. Fishermen returned. Children played near the banks again. The people of nearby villages believed the nightmare was over. But every night, a lone figure watched from the shadows, never speaking, never sleeping, always listening. Gilbert had accepted the burden. The curse no longer controlled him. He controlled it. As long as he remained vigilant, the ancient evil beneath the river would never rise again. One year later, thousands of miles away, in the Florida Everglades, a wildlife researcher examined strange tracks along the edge of a canal. They weren't made by an alligator. They weren't made by a crocodile. They looked almost human. The researcher looked across the dark water. Nothing. Then, 2 enormous yellow eyes opened beneath the surface. A low growl rolled across the swamp. One final whisper echoed through the darkness. The river always finds another.